Commander Lee Taman stared at the massive black shape floating in space through the bridge windows of his ship, the Aurora's Edge. The thing was huge, bigger than any space station he had ever seen. It looked like someone had carved a mountain into the shape of a ship and painted it black as night. 300 years, said Dr. Park Mina, reading from her datapad. 300 years this thing has been sitting here and nobody knows where it came from or what it does. Taman nodded slowly. The ship, if it really was a ship, had been found drifting in the Kepler 442 system long before he was born. The Galactic Council called it the Silent Warden because it never responded to any signals. Ships that got too close sometimes disappeared without a trace. Sir, called engineer Kim Do-yun from his station. I'm getting some strange readings. The thing is putting out energy now, very faint, but it's there. This was new. In all the reports Taman had read, the Silent Warden had never shown any signs of life. It just floated there like a dead rock. What kind of energy? Asked Dr. Park, moving to look at Kim's screen. I don't know, Kim replied, frowning. It's not like anything in our databases. The pattern keeps changing. Captain Yoon Ji-ya's voice crackled over the radio from the monitoring station. Aurora's Edge. We're seeing the same readings here. The council wants you to investigate, but be careful. We don't know what woke it up. Taman felt his stomach tighten. The council only called his team when they wanted someone expendable to poke at dangerous things. Still, this was what they were paid for. Take us closer, but slowly, he ordered his pilot. Full shields up. As they approached the Silent Warden, its true size became clear. The thing was not just big, it was enormous. Taman's ship could have fit inside it 1,000 times over. The hull was perfectly black, so dark it seemed to swallow light. The metal, Dr. Park whispered, studying her scanners. This shouldn't be possible. The hull is made of something that repairs itself. Every scratch, every dent, it just fixes itself instantly. How do you know that? Taman asked. Because I'm watching it happen right now. There's space dust hitting the hull and the tiny impacts just disappear. The metal flows back together like water. Kim was shaking his head at his instruments. Boss, this thing is messing with my equipment. The energy signature keeps shifting. Sometimes it looks like the ship is powered down. Sometimes it looks like it could blow up a planet. They circled the Silent Warden for an hour, scanning every inch of its surface. The ship was smooth and seamless, with no visible weapons or engines, but there was something else, a small opening on the side, barely big enough for their ship to fit through. Is that a docking bay? Taman wondered aloud. Looks like it, said Dr. Park, and it's the only opening we can find. Could be a trap, Kim pointed out. Thing sits here for 3 centuries doing nothing, then suddenly opens up when humans show up. That's suspicious. Taman had to agree, but they had their orders. We're going in. Everyone check your gear. If this goes wrong, I want to be ready to run. The Aurora's Edge slipped through the opening and into a vast chamber. Emergency lights flickered on automatically, revealing walls that stretched up so high they disappeared in darkness. The docking bay was big enough to hold 100 ships their size. The air is breathable, reported Kim, checking his sensors. Gravity is normal. Temperature is comfortable. It's like this place was built for humans. They put on their protective suits anyway and left their ship. The floor was made of the same black metal as the hull, but it felt solid under their feet. Their footsteps echoed in the huge, empty space. At the center of the chamber stood a single platform, about waist-high. On top of it was something that made all 3 humans stop and stare. It was a button, just a simple red button, like you might find on any piece of human equipment. But what made it strange was the writing next to it. The words were in perfect human English. Emergency protocol, authorized personnel only. That's impossible, breathed Dr. Park. How can there be human writing on an alien ship? Kim was scanning the button with every instrument he had. It's not alien tech, boss. This button, the platform, even the power source. It's all human technology. Old human technology, but definitely human. But humans have never built anything. Like this ship, Taman said. We don't have the knowledge or the materials. Maybe we did once, Dr. Park suggested quietly. Maybe we forgot. They spent hours examining the chamber but found no other controls, no other doors, nothing. Just the button and the platform waiting in the center of the vast empty space. Should we press it? Asked Kim. Absolutely not, Taman replied quickly. We have no idea what it does. For all we know, it could destroy half the galaxy. But as they prepared to leave, the chamber began to change. Lights came on along the walls, revealing corridors leading deeper into the ship. And from somewhere in the distance came a sound, a low humming, like the ship was waking up. It knows we're here, whispered Dr. Park. It's responding to us. The humming grew louder, and now they could feel vibrations through the floor. The silent warden was definitely alive, and it was paying attention to them. We need to get back to the ship, Taman decided. Report to the council. Let them figure out what to do next. But as they turned to leave, all three humans felt the same strange sensation. It was like something vast and ancient was watching them, studying them, waiting for something. The button sat on its platform, red and inviting. The human words seemed to glow in the dim light. Emergency protocol. Authorized personnel only. Whatever the silent warden was waiting for, Taman had the uncomfortable feeling that it was waiting for them, for humans. But why? As they flew back to the monitoring station, the massive black ship continued to hum behind them. After 3 centuries of silence, the galaxy's greatest mystery was finally beginning to wake up, and it had human fingerprints all over it. 3 days after their first visit to the silent warden, Commander Taman found himself back inside the massive ship. This time, the corridors that had appeared were fully lit, leading them deeper into the vessel's heart. Dr. Park Mina walked. Beside him, her scanner beeping constantly. The architecture is definitely human, she said, running her hand along the smooth walls. But the construction methods are far beyond anything we can do today. These walls are grown, not built. Engineer Kim Do-hyun was examining panels that had appeared along the corridor walls. Boss, these control systems are responding to my touch, but only mine. When Dr. Park tries to use them, nothing happens. It's like the ship can tell we're human, but it prefers me for some reason. They had been walking for an hour when they found the first chamber. It was circular with walls covered in what looked like screens. As they entered, the screens came to life, showing images that made all 3 humans stop and stare. Stars. Hundreds of thousands of stars connected by lines of light. But as they watched, dark shapes moved between the stars. The shapes were wrong somehow. They seemed to eat the light around them, leaving empty black holes in space. What are we looking at? Taman asked quietly. A voice answered him, not from any speaker but from everywhere at once, as if the ship itself was talking. Historical records, the voice said. It sounded old, tired, but definitely artificial. The last war against the Devourers. Your species fought them for 1,000 years. Our species? Dr. Park stepped forward. But humans have only been in space for a few hundred years. We never fought anyone called Devourers. Incorrect, the voice replied. Humans ruled 67 star systems before the war. You built this ship as the final defense against the enemy. I am Keeper, the guardian intelligence you left behind. The screens changed, showing new images. Huge human cities on dozens of worlds. Fleets of ships that made modern vessels look like toys. Technologies that seemed like magic. This is impossible, Kim breathed. If humans had an empire like this, where did it go? Why don't we remember? The war required sacrifice, Keeper explained. To defeat the Devourers, humanity gave up everything. Your empire, your knowledge, even your memories. The survivors were scattered to primitive colonies, told to forget their past until the danger returned. More images flashed on the screens. The dark shapes, the Devourers consuming entire worlds. Stars going out one by one. And finally, human ships making a last desperate stand while something terrible happened in deep space. The Devourers feed on consciousness itself, Keeper continued. They turn living beings into fuel for their machines. Every species they encounter becomes part of their hunger. The various aliens in your current Galactic Council are descendants of refugees that ancient humanity protected. Taman felt cold. You're saying we saved the galaxy before but forgot about it? Yes, and now they return. My sensors detect movement in dark space. The seals your ancestors placed are weakening. The Devourers will arrive within 1 standard year. The screens showed current star maps, but now Taman could see dark spots moving between systems. Things that shouldn't exist, heading toward populated worlds. Dr. Park was studying the historical data. According to this, humans weren't just another species. We were apparently the only ones who could hurt the Devourers. Something about our brain patterns, our way of thinking. Correct, Keeper agreed. Human consciousness is uniquely resistant to devourer absorption. You cannot be turned into fuel as easily as other species. This is why the ship responds to you and why I have waited for your return. Kim was looking worried. What exactly are you asking us to do? This vessel is more than a ship. It is a weapon capable of sterilizing entire sectors of space. But it requires human neural patterns to function. Specifically, it requires a human willing to merge with my systems permanently. The chamber fell, silent except for the soft hum of the ship's power. Finally, Taman spoke. What happens to whoever does this merging? Their consciousness becomes part of the ship. They gain the ability to control weapons that can rewrite the laws of physics, but they lose their individual humanity. The previous Guardian served for 3,000 years before fading away. I have been alone ever since. Through the ship's communication system, Admiral Cho Seung-hwan's angry voice crackled. Human vessel, withdraw immediately. The Council has voted. That ship is too dangerous to remain active. Keeper's voice became urgent. The aliens fear what humans might become if you reclaim your power. But without this ship, their worlds will fall to the Devourers just as they almost did before. The screens showed long-range sensor data. Dark objects were definitely moving through space, heading toward the outer colonies. Several human settlements had already gone silent, their distress calls cut off mid-transmission. Admiral Cho, Taman, responded on the radio. We need to warn everyone there's something coming, something that will destroy everything if we don't. Enough. Cho's voice was sharp. You've been on that ship too long. It's affecting your judgment. Return to the station for debriefing. But even as the Admiral spoke, alerts began sounding on the monitoring station. Captain Yoon Ji-hye's voice came through tight with fear. Admiral, we're getting reports from the outer rim. 3 colonies have gone dark in the last hour, and, sir, the sensor readings from those systems, there's nothing there anymore. No planets, no stars, nothing. The screens in the chamber confirmed Captain Yoon's words. Where colonies had been just hours before, there was now only empty space. The Devourers weren't just coming. They were already here, and they were hungry. Keeper's voice was sad, but determined. The choice approaches faster than expected. The enemy moves more quickly than before, perhaps because they remember the threat humanity represents. Soon, someone must decide whether to press the button and become the galaxy's guardian, or watch everything burn. Kim was staring at his readings. Boss, the ship is powering up on its own. Not full power, but something's definitely happening. I am preparing for war, Keeper explained. But I cannot fight without a human partner. The weapon systems will not respond to artificial intelligence alone. As if summoned by their conversation, Admiral Cho's fleet appeared on the ship's sensors, dozens of council vessels surrounding the silent warden. This is your final warning, Cho broadcast. Evacuate that ship immediately, or we will fire on it. Sir, Dr. Park said quietly, if what Keeper is telling us is true, destroying this ship might doom the entire galaxy. Taman looked at the red button on its platform, still glowing patiently in the center of the chamber. The human words seemed to pulse with their own light. Emergency protocol, authorized personnel only. Outside, more reports were coming in. Entire systems going dark. Billions of lives vanishing without a trace. The emergency was here. The only question was whether anyone would be brave enough to press the button. President Han Soo-young stood in the Emergency Council chamber on Earth, watching the holographic display that showed the galaxy burning. Red markers indicated systems that had gone silent in the past week. There were too many to count. 17 billion people, reported General John Minseok, his voice hollow. Gone in 7 days. We're not fighting an invasion. We're watching the universe get eaten. The Galactic Council had split into 3 factions. 1/3 wanted to destroy the Silent Warden before humans could use it. 1/3 wanted to surrender to the Devourers and hope for mercy. The final third was begging humanity to save them, just like the history files said their ancestors had done before. Madam President, said Dr. Lim Ji-won via secure communication. From her research station, I've been analyzing the data from Commander Taemin's team. The Devourers aren't just destroying planets, they're harvesting consciousness itself. Every living mind becomes fuel for their machines. Han nodded grimly. The reports were horrifying. When the Devourers took a world, they didn't just kill everyone. They captured their minds, their memories, their very souls, and used them as batteries for their dark technology. What about the weapon? Han asked. Can we use the Silent Warden without the sacrifice Keeper described? I'm working on it, Dr. Lim replied. But the quantum entanglement between human neural patterns and the ship's systems appears to be necessary. Without it, the weapon is just an empty shell. Back on the Silent Warden, Commander Taemin was experiencing the weight of impossible choices. Keeper had shown them more of the ship's capabilities, and the scope was terrifying. The weapon could do more than destroy enemies. It could rewrite the fundamental laws of physics across entire star systems. You could make gravity flow backward, Keeper explained as they walked through another chamber filled with incomprehensible technology. You could turn a star into a black hole with a thought. You could make space itself reject the Devourer's existence. Dr. Park was recording everything on her scanner. But the cost is becoming part of the ship forever? Not just part of the ship, Keeper clarified. You become the ship. Your consciousness expands to fill every system, every weapon, every sensor. You see everything, control everything, protect everything. But you are no longer human in any meaningful sense. Engineer Kim was studying the quantum core at the ship's heart. It was beautiful and terrible, a sphere of pure energy suspended in a web of crystalline structures that seemed to exist in several dimensions at once. The previous Guardian? Kim asked. What happened to them? Commander Yuki Tanaka, Keeper said softly. She pressed the button in the year 2157 by your old calendar. She fought the Devourers for 3,000 years, until her consciousness finally faded from exhaustion. I have been alone since then, waiting for her replacement. Taemin felt sick. 3,000 years of solitude, protecting a galaxy that forgot to thank you. Is there no way to reverse the process, to become human again? No. The quantum entanglement is permanent, but Commander Tanaka did not regret her choice. Through the ship's sensors, she experienced wonders no human mind was meant to comprehend. She witnessed the birth of stars, the dance of galaxies, the secret patterns that connect all living things. Their conversation was interrupted by urgent signals from the monitoring station. Captain Yoon Ji-hye's voice was strained with panic. Commander Taemin, we're getting readings of something massive approaching the system. It's bigger than anything we've ever seen. Through the ship's sensors, they watched it arrive. The thing was so large it bent space around itself, a writhing mass of dark energy and consumed matter. Ships, planets, even pieces of stars were embedded in its surface, all twisted together into something that hurt to look at. The Devourer Prime, Keeper whispered, and for the first time the AI sounded afraid. The central consciousness that commands their entire species. It has come personally to ensure humanity cannot interfere again. The entity began speaking, its voice reaching every inhabited world simultaneously through quantum manipulation of space itself. The words were in every language at once, but the meaning was clear. Little humans, you have awakened the ancient weapon, but you are not the species that built it. Those humans were strong enough to make the ultimate sacrifice. You are weak, scattered, afraid. You will not press the button. You will watch your galaxy burn, knowing you could have saved it but lacked the courage. As if responding to the challenge, reports flooded in from human colonies throughout the galaxy. Not of surrender, not of fear, but of defiance. On world after world, humans were fighting hopeless battles against devourer forces, buying time for their families to escape, refusing to give up even when victory was impossible. President Han's voice reached the silent warden on an emergency. Frequency. Commander Taman, the Human Colonial Alliance authorizes activation of the weapon. The vote was unanimous. We cannot ask you to make this sacrifice, but if you're willing, General Jian added his own message. Sir, our conventional weapons are useless. They absorb energy attacks and turn kinetic weapons into more fuel for their ships. We need that ancient technology, and we need it now. Through the ship's communication system, they could hear the voices of humans throughout the galaxy. Mothers saying goodbye to their children. Soldiers making last stands on doomed worlds. Scientists trying desperately to find another solution, even as their laboratories burned around them. But there were other voices too. The aliens who had initially feared human power were now begging for human protection. The Galactic Council was officially requesting activation of the Silent Warden, promising humanity equal status in return for saving their worlds. Commander Taman stood before the red button, his hand inches away from changing his life forever. Behind him, Dr. Park and Engineer Kim waited in silence, knowing they couldn't make this choice for him. If I do this, Taman asked Keeper, will it work? Can one human consciousness really control something this powerful? Commander Tanaka managed for 3 millennia, Keeper replied. But the Devourers are stronger now, more organized. It will require everything you have and more than you know you possess. The Devourer Prime's mental voice pressed against their minds like a physical weight. Choose quickly, little human. I grow tired of waiting. Press your button and become a prisoner in your own weapon, or watch reality itself burn. Either way, you cannot stop what comes next. Taman looked at his companions, at the faces of the only family he had ever known. Take care of each other, he said quietly. Wait. Dr. Park grabbed his arm. There has to be another way. Dr. Lim is still working on alternatives. Maybe if we... Her words were cut off by an alert from the ship's sensors. The Devourer Prime was no longer content to wait. It was beginning to tear reality apart around the Silent Warden, trying to destroy the weapon before it could be activated. Time was up. The choice had to be made now. Taman looked at the button one last time. The human words glowed brighter. Emergency protocol. Authorized personnel only. The emergency was here. He was authorized personnel. There was really no choice. At all. Commander Taman's hand hovered over the red button while reality twisted around the Silent Warden. The Devourer Prime's assault on space itself was causing impossible things to happen. Through the ship's windows, they could see stars aging backwards, space folding in on itself like origami, and areas where the laws of physics simply stopped working. The barrier between dimensions is breaking down, Keeper reported, his artificial voice strained. If the Prime continues this assault, it will tear a hole in reality itself. The damage will spread across the galaxy. Dr. Park was frantically working at her scanner. Taman, wait, Dr. Lim thinks she's found something. A way to modify the quantum entanglement so you don't have to lose yourself completely. How long does she need? Taman asked, though he could see through the ship's sensors that they didn't have long. Devourer forces were surrounding the system, and several stars were already showing signs of collapse from the Prime's reality manipulation. She doesn't know. Maybe hours, maybe days. We don't have hours, Engineer Kim said, reading his instruments. Boss, the ship's hull is starting to buckle. Whatever the Prime is doing, it's affecting the quantum-locked metal. Even self-repairing armor has limits. That's when they heard the other voice. Not Keeper's artificial intelligence, but something else. Something that felt ancient and tired and infinitely sad. Commander Taman, the voice whispered, seeming to come from the quantum core itself. I am the last oracle. I am what remains of Commander Yuki Tanaka. The chamber around them shifted, becoming transparent, and suddenly they were standing in a space that existed partially in normal reality and partially in quantum dimensions. Before them stood a figure that was barely human anymore, a woman's, shape made of starlight and mathematical equations, constantly shifting between states of existence. "You're still alive?" Dr. Park gasped. "Alive is not the correct word," the Oracle replied. "I am consciousness without flesh, thought without body, memory without time. I have been the galaxy's guardian for 3,000 years, and I am very, very tired." She showed them what it really meant to be bonded with the Silent Warden, not just controlling the ship but being the ship. Feeling every star in the galaxy as part of your body, sensing every living mind as an extension of your thoughts, the terrible weight of protecting billions of beings who would never know your name. But there was beauty too, the Oracle continued, and for a moment her form became more solid, more human. "I have seen the birth of nebulae, watched civilizations rise from primitiveness to greatness, felt the joy of parents holding their newborn children on 10,000 worlds. The loneliness was worth it to protect all of that." "Why are you telling me this?" Taman asked. "Because this time can be different." The Oracle's form brightened with something like hope. "When I pressed the button, I was alone. But you have something I never had. You have connections. Your crew, your species, the bonds that make you human. If you can hold on to those connections, you won't face the isolation that nearly destroyed me." Engineer Kim stepped forward. "What about Dr. Lim's modifications? Could they work?" "Perhaps," the Oracle admitted, "but there is no time to test them. The Prime grows stronger with each passing moment. Soon even the Silent Warden's power will not be enough to stop it." Through the ship's sensors they watched as the Devourer Prime began its final assault. It wasn't just attacking their system anymore, it was attacking the concept of their system, trying to erase it from reality entirely. Several planets flickered in and out of existence. The monitoring station vanished for 30 seconds, then reappeared with half its crew missing from history. President Han Soo-young's voice came through the communication system, distorted by the reality storms. "Commander, whatever you're going to do it now. We're getting reports of entire star systems being edited out of existence. If this continues, there won't be a galaxy left to save." General Jian's transmission was even more urgent. "Sir, the outer colonies are gone, not destroyed. Gone. They never existed. The Devourers are rewriting history itself." Dr. Lim's voice cut through the chaos. "Taman, I've uploaded my modifications to the ship's systems. It's not perfect, but it might let you retain more of your humanity. The quantum entanglement will still be permanent, but you'll have anchor points, connections to keep you grounded." "What kind of connections?" Taman asked. "Emotional ones, memories of the people you care about. The ship will preserve those and reinforce them, so you don't fade away like the previous Guardian did." The Oracle smiled, and for that moment she looked entirely human. "Yes, that could work. The loneliness was the worst part, not the power itself. If you can stay connected to your humanity, you might succeed where I only endured." Taman looked at his friends, at Dr. Park, who had taught him to see wonder in ancient mysteries, at Engineer Kim, who could make any machine work through sheer determination and stubbornness. These were the connections that would keep him human. "There's something else," the Oracle said quietly. "When you merge with the ship, you won't just be controlling ancient human technology. You'll be connecting with every human consciousness that ever lived. We preserve them all in the quantum core. Millions of minds from the old empire, waiting to help protect the galaxy they once ruled." "All of them?" Dr. Park asked in amazement. "Every human who ever pressed the button? Every Guardian who ever served? You won't be alone, Commander. You'll be part of something larger than any individual, but still connected to what makes you human." The ship shuddered as another reality wave hit them. Through the sensors, they could see that normal space was breaking down entirely around the Devourer Prime. If they waited much longer, there wouldn't be a universe left to protect. "I have to do this," Taman said, finally understanding the full weight of his choice. "Not because I want to, but because someone has to." He turned to his crew. "When this is over, when the galaxy is safe, remember that humans didn't conquer. Had we protected it, that's what makes us different from the Devourers. We know when to sacrifice for others. Dr. Park was crying. We'll remember. Everyone will remember. Kim clasped his shoulder. You're not dying, boss. You're becoming something greater. And if these old guardians are right, you won't be alone. The oracle began to fade as her ancient consciousness finally prepared to rest. The quantum core is ready. Dr. Lim's modifications are in place. When you press the button, reach out with your mind. Find the connections that matter. Hold on to them and let them hold on to you. Taman approached the button one final time. The Devourer Prime's mental voice was screaming now, no longer confident, recognizing the threat that was about to awaken. You cannot. I will not permit it. The old humans are gone. You are not worthy of their power. But Taman smiled as his finger moved toward the button. You're right. I'm not worthy of their power. But I don't need to be worthy. I just need to care enough to try. The red button seemed to pulse with anticipation. The human words glowed like fire. Emergency protocol. Authorized personnel only. Behind him, his friends watched with pride and terror as their commander prepared to save the galaxy by becoming something beyond human understanding. The button was warm under his finger. The moment Commander Taman's finger touched the button, the universe changed. Light exploded from the silent warden, not the harsh light of weapons, but something warm and alive and impossibly bright. The ship's black hull transformed into something that seemed to be made of crystallized starlight, pulsing with power that made nearby space itself sing. Inside the ship, Taman felt his consciousness expand. For a terrifying instant, he thought he was dissolving, losing himself in the vast network of the ship's systems. But then he felt them. The connections Dr. Lim had modified, the anchor points that kept him grounded. The memory of Dr. Park's curiosity, Engineer Kim's loyalty, the faces of everyone he had ever cared about. I'm still me, he whispered, and his voice echoed through every corridor of the massive ship. I'm still human. But he was more than human now. His mind stretched across light years, touching every sensor, every weapon, every system. He could feel the quantum fabric of space itself, see the mathematical patterns that held reality together. And he wasn't alone. Other voices whispered in the darkness of his expanded consciousness. Commander Tanaka, the last oracle, welcoming him with relief and gratitude. But she wasn't the only one. Hundreds of other voices, all the humans who had ever been guardians, all the consciousness preserved in the ship's quantum core. Welcome, brother, they said in unison. You are the first to join us while keeping your humanity intact. Now let us show you what we can do together. Outside the ship, the Devourer Prime's reality assault faltered as it encountered something it had never faced before. The combined will of every human guardian who had ever lived, focused through Taman's still human heart. Impossible, the Prime's mental voice snarled. The old humans were broken, scattered, afraid. You cannot be as strong as they were. Taman's response came through the ship's communication systems, his voice now layered with the wisdom of ages but still recognizably his own. You're right. We're not as strong as they were. We're stronger, because we learned something they didn't know. We don't have to face the darkness alone. The Silent Warden's weapons activated, but these weren't the crude energy beams or kinetic projectiles of normal space combat. These were reality-shaping tools that worked by changing the fundamental laws of physics around their targets. Where the Devourer Prime had been bending space to its will, Taman straightened it. Where the entity had been consuming matter and energy, he made consumption impossible. The Prime's dark mass began to shrink as its stolen components were returned to their original states. Planets restored, stars rekindled, captured consciousness, freed. You cannot, the Prime screamed, its mental voice now filled with something that might have been fear. We are the hunger that devours all. We are inevitable. No, Taman replied, and his words carried the authority of someone who could see the quantum structure of existence itself. You're a parasite, and parasites can be cured. The battle that followed wasn't a fight in any conventional sense. It was a contest between two different concepts of reality. The Devourers believed in consumption, in turning everything into fuel for their endless hunger. But Taman, guided by his human connections and supported by the consciousness of every guardian before him, represented something else entirely: protection, sacrifice, and the willingness to preserve rather than consume. Around the galaxy, Devourer, forces began to simply stop. Not destroyed, but transformed. Their dark ships became ordinary matter. Their consumed victims were restored. The reality tears they had created healed themselves. Dr. Park watched from the monitoring station with tears in her eyes. He's doing it. He's actually doing it. Engineer Kim was monitoring the energy readings. But at what cost? The power output is incredible. How can any consciousness, even an expanded one, handle this kind of load? Through the ship's communication system, Taman answered him. Because I'm not handling it alone, old friend. Every human who ever lived is helping me carry this burden. And more than that, I can feel every person in the galaxy, human and alien alike, lending me their strength. It was true. Across the galaxy, beings who had never heard of the Silent Warden or its guardians suddenly felt a presence in their minds. Gentle, protective, asking for nothing but offering hope. And one by one they responded, adding their will to Taman's, their determination to his resolve. The Devourer Prime made one final attempt at victory, trying to corrupt Taman's expanded consciousness, to turn him into another consumer of worlds. But it met something it couldn't understand: a human heart that had chosen love over power, protection over conquest, sacrifice over self-preservation. I banish you, Taman said, and his words rewrote the laws of physics around the primes. Position. Back to the dark spaces between realities. Back to the emptiness you came from. And this time, the seals will hold forever. The Devourer Prime's form began to collapse, not destroyed, but simply edited out of local reality. Its final mental scream echoed across dimensions as it was forcibly returned to the dark space between universes, followed by every one of its kind. As the last of the Devourers vanished, the Silent Warden's blazing light began to dim. The ship didn't return to its previous black hull, but remained a soft, comforting glow visible from light years away. Is it over? Captain Yoon asked from the monitoring station. It's over, Taman's voice confirmed, though it sounded different. Now, older, wiser, touched by cosmic awareness but still fundamentally human. The Devourers are gone and they won't be coming back. President Han's voice came through on the emergency channel. Commander Taman, are you still you? Taman laughed, and the sound was warm and familiar despite the vast power behind it. I'm still me, Madam President. Changed, expanded, but still the same stubborn human who couldn't let the galaxy burn when he had the power to stop it. In the years that followed, the galaxy began to heal. The various alien species, no longer afraid of human expansion, worked, together with humanity, to rebuild what had been lost. The Galactic Council became a true federation, with humans taking their place not as conquerors, but as protectors. Dr. Park established new schools that taught both human and alien knowledge, creating a golden age of discovery and cooperation. Engineer Kim designed ships that could travel safely through the quantum storms that still occasionally appeared in space, always knowing that the Silent Warden was watching over them. The ship itself became a pilgrimage site, where beings from across the galaxy came to pay their respects to the guardians who had sacrificed everything for their protection. But it was also a communication hub, where anyone could speak to the man who had become something greater than human while remaining fundamentally human at heart. On the anniversary of the battle, Captain Yoon made her annual visit to the Silent Warden. She stood in the great chamber where it all began, looking at the platform where the red button had been. It was gone now, its purpose fulfilled, replaced by a simple memorial plaque. Hello, Taman, she said to the air. Hello, Jihi. His voice came from everywhere and nowhere, layered with the wisdom of ages but still warm with friendship. Thank you for visiting. How are you holding up? It's been 10 years. 10 years, 3 months, 15 days, and about 6 hours. Taman replied with a chuckle. I experience time differently now, but to answer your question, I'm not alone. I have the other guardians, I have the connections to everyone I care about, and I have the most important job in the galaxy. Any regrets? There was a long pause before he answered. I miss being able to share a meal with friends. I miss the simple pleasure of sleeping and waking up. I miss being surprised by sunsets. Another pause. But every night I feel the dreams of children on 1,000 worlds, safe because of what we did here. Every morning I watch new stars being born in regions that used to be consumed by darkness. The trade was worth it. Captain Yoon nodded, understanding. The galaxy is grateful. The galaxy is healing, Taman corrected gently. And I get to be part of that healing. That's not a burden, it's a privilege. As she prepared to leave, Captain Yoon asked one final question. Will you always be here, watching over us? Taman's answer came with the weight of eternity behind it, but also with the warmth of humanity that no amount of cosmic power could diminish. Always. That's what guardians do. We watch, we protect, we remember why life is worth preserving, and we make sure that the darkness stays where it belongs, in the empty spaces between the stars, never again touching the light. The silent warden continued its eternal patrol, no longer silent, no longer alone, carrying within its quantum heart the consciousness of humanity's greatest hero, a man who had pressed a button to save the galaxy, and in doing so had proven that the greatest strength comes not from power, but from the willingness to sacrifice everything for those who cannot protect themselves.